Okay, I think we're live.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today, and hi to everyone listening. So this is a bit of a different stream for us. So normally we would do digital topics and different things that we've seen in our industry. But as May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and today specifically is Mental Health Awareness Day, we are going to be talking about all things mental health and well-being today. So we've got some special guests. So we've got Pete Fairburn, who is from Morphsites. Hi, Pete.
Hiya.
And then we've got Jess, who is an Exeter Chiefs rugby player and ambassador for Give Ruck, the charity. Hi, Matt.
Hiya. Hiya.
And then we've also got Al, who joins all of these with us. He is our director from Optics. Hi, Al.
Hi, Becky.
Missing
Crystal today.
Oh yeah, we are missing Crystal. Crystal did the standalone interview with Mandy a couple of weeks ago, so she has bowed out of this one for today.
She'll be back though. She'll be back.
She will. Yep. How's all your weeks going?
Pretty good so far. Yeah, can't complain with the weather and everything. Yeah, it's not too bad at all. What about you?
Yeah, all right, thank you. Again, enjoying the weather. It's nice, especially not having the rain with my puppy, because I don't like going out walking with him in the rain, unfortunately.
I'm absolutely gutted. I'm gutted this week because I'm supposed to be on holiday in Cornwall.
Oh, you are, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw
so
that.
I should be on the beach on Damer Bay near Poles F, but I'm talking to you, lovely people. So that's a good
exactly.
thing.
You've reminded me. I'm meant to be flying to I'm meant to be flying to New York tomorrow.
Oh God.
Oh no.
But that ain't happening. So thanks for reminding me of that, Al. That's great.
Sorry, mate. How's Matt?
Yeah, no, good. Like I say, the weather's pretty good. So I've been in the garden, sort of throwing some rugby balls around. So I'm keeping myself entertained.
Good stuff. Nice. Okay, so we start off all of our live streams kind of talking about what we've seen in the media recently, or if we've seen any businesses doing kind of good practice things that we want to mention. So if anyone has got anything to share that they've kind of seen recently, which is to do with today's topic, please go for it. Pete, do you want to start us off, as I've prepped you for this one?
Yeah, no problem. Two things I've seen. We work with a company in the southwest, quite a big company. They've got about 300 people on their team. And obviously, lockdown, I haven't been on site for a couple of months now. But in their staff cafeteria, they have a huge amount of literature and messaging around the importance of looking after yourself and your mental health. And they run workshops, sessions, they offer counselling. And it's just so impressive to see a company of that scale taking it so seriously, not just sort of doing it as a box ticking exercise, but on every table in the cafeteria, there's information on it. They really take it seriously. And I was speaking to one of the directors there this week, and they actually have daily phone calls where they get different staff to talk to each other who wouldn't normally, under normal operations, speak to one another, just to sort of see how they're getting on and that kind of thing. And they're sending out emails with sort of guidance on stuff you can do to keep yourself going, and some really practical things in there. So I thought, what a great example from a bigger company who could just see it as a box ticking exercise, sort of mental health. We haven't got time for that, or we just don't have the resources. They're really taking it seriously, and it shows because they've got such a happy workforce. It's really commendable.
Nice. Sounds really good.
I'll jump in quickly on that as well, because I've heard a couple of similar kind of stories recently. So I spoke to a very large solicitors who they're actually global solicitors, and they are running guided meditation with their staff. So they do like a drop-in session, I think, once or twice a week to kind of practice mindfulness. And I thought that was amazing. And apparently they're getting people dialing in from all over the world to do that. And then one of our clients is a very large recruitment company based up in London. Again, similar to Pete's story, really, hundreds and hundreds of staff. And what they've actually got a team that are invested in doing stuff for their staff. So I guess it's like lots of fun stuff as well. But from a mental health perspective, they're doing things like yoga sessions virtually. They're doing the mindfulness side of things. They're just trying to do as much as they can, almost on a daily basis through the week. So it's great to hear some companies taking it kind of that seriously, isn't it?
Nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think from my perspective as well, more so with kind of like the situation we're all in and we're all sort of surrounded by at the moment, is like, even like via social media, obviously I got tagged into one 26 days ago now, because I finished, but even doing something like on social media, like 25 press ups for 25 days, for PTSD, anxiety, depression and suicide. And even sort of I've got people involved which I didn't even think would get involved, or sort of be involved. I've got an old touch judge which we went back years ago, but he's 61 and he's doing them. And I just think people are kind of reaching out and they're finding time. Sometimes with their normal jobs they wouldn't have to do those sort of things, or they get sort of like backlogged and they get pushed back, whereas now they're being at the forefront of everyone's mind. And it's like, right, I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to get my 25 done, video it, going to tag somebody in, and let's just get the awareness out there. So I think that's really important as well.
Yeah,
fantastic. I mean, what better person to be talking to about exercise than you, Matt, as well, and how important exercise at this time might be. Because I think I struggled. So I had a PT before this, and obviously when this all happened I couldn't go to that PT anymore, so I found that in the first couple of weeks that everything happened, it was just so crazy at work. I wasn't finding any time to do any exercise at all, and I was working kind of 10-12 hours a day and just absolutely burning out. And so my wife and kids started making us do Joe Wicks, and now we're doing Joe Wicks 3 days a week, but it's been amazing. I just feel so much better after doing just 20 minutes of exercise in the morning. We get up first thing before we get showered and changed and stuff. We just go straight downstairs, we do it with the kids. It's a bit of fun, but it just gives you that kind of, it gives you that boost, doesn't it? And you feel so much better for it. And Matt, you're better placed to tell me this than anyone else, but exercise it just has such a wonderful kind of approach to this, doesn't it? It helps you with your mental side. Yeah,
I completely agree with everything you say there, and I think it's funny, isn't it? I did something. I was part of a project called Local Hero, and one of the things I said, and they get you to kind of talk about what you think, so you describe mental health, which is kind of quite it's very different to other people, and people will take a different view on it. But my view on it is, so I kind of relate it to my physical health. So I know if I know I'm physically fit, or I suppose it's gone part of my job in terms of being a rugby player. But if I knew I was physically fit, I knew that my mind was going to be in the best place, and so I refer to that. So it's like, well, you do stuff physically to keep your body in check and healthy, and to be best prepared as you can be as a human being. So we should be doing that. And if that's what keeping your mind, sane, and sort of like your mind like in a really positive space, then I feel that's really important. And like I say, it doesn't have to be like an hour's grueling session. It's just being active. It could be 10 minutes going for a walk for people. It might be taking the dog for a walk. It's just being up and about, and I think a lot of people kind of get scared and they go, I don't want to do an hour in a gym, and I don't want to be taxed for like an hour. You don't have to. Just 10-minute walk, whatever, walking the dog and stuff. And I think staying active, physically active, again, keeps that positive mind.
Yeah,
sure,
definitely.
I think, Becky, if you don't mind, I'm just going to quickly go back a stage and just sort of explain a little bit about the mental health side of things, and I think why you and I sort of really wanted to put this on, and why we wanted to divert from digital, if that's okay, because obviously mental health is so important to us as a business and to us individually, and we're going to talk about some of those stories. But I think it's just been, we've seen so many horrendous kind of stories of, you know, people that have really got to the very worst part of this, and, you know, people have lost lives, haven't they, that we know. You know, I've got a list here just next to me of people like Caroline Flack, Robin Williams, Avicii, Kurt Cobain, Keith Flint. You know, these are all names that we're all synonymous with. But I guess the job of, or what we suppose we just wanted to do a little bit with this, was just raise the awareness of how it's okay to talk about this subject, and also how you might be surprised that there are people that are out there that might not seem to be affected by this stuff, but maybe are. And so through doing this kind of thing and having like a group of very different people on this call talking about it, people might realize, okay, if they've got a problem, actually it's okay to talk about it, and just understand that other people might have challenges as well. So that was kind of the main reason, really, wasn't it, for wanting to do this a bit?
Yeah, something which I think is really like worth mentioning, which got brought to my attention yesterday, and I hadn't even thought about it at all, is that like quite often people talk about mental health, and it does feel like a bit more of a female field sometimes, and there's a lot of push to try and help men to talk about it. And it was raised with me yesterday that all three of our guests today are men, so I think that actually is going to be really important for some people watching. So thanks to all three of you for joining.
Yeah, pleasure. Should we jump into the kind of more interview? How did you call this, Becky? Graham Norton style?
Yeah, it's like Graham Norton, where we're all sat on the sofa.
You're Graham Norton, yeah?
Yeah, I'm Graham Norton. But then
who's pushing the buzzer to get the chair going?
Yeah, exactly. I'll wheel the red chair out in a minute. But yeah, so we're all sat on the sofa, but we're just going to spotlight on each of you in turn. But everyone can join in the conversation at all points. So Matt, the spotlight is falling on you first.
Excellent.
So can you tell us a little bit about why this is so important to you?
And also your background, Matt, as well, just in case people don't know you.
Yeah, absolutely. So so obviously I'm an ex-professional rugby player, and I started playing rugby when I was 17. So in terms of professionally, so when I was 17, and then I retired 2 or 3 seasons ago now. So I had 17 years, sort of like top flight in the game. And it's funny, like as you go through rugby, you kind of you get told about, or you start to hear about people struggling with sort of mental health. And I'll go back to one story, which was a couple of years before I kind of finished retiring, and it was a story about Dan Vickerman, who was an Australian international second rower. Went to, I think it was either Oxford or Cambridge, and basically come over here. He played for Northampton, but he studied over here. So a man who was obviously, you know, unbelievably like smart and intellectual, but also you know, a very quality athlete, knew his game, knew his lineouts. You know, I think he capped in Australia, but played for Australia, and a number of caps. And there was a moment where I sat in the change room and opened Sky Sports News, and I heard that he'd committed suicide, and he'd committed suicide. And straight away I kind of thought to myself, well, I can't really understand. You know, you think about somebody who's got so much, and you try and start to think about, well, what's he been going through. And at the end of the day, I was trying to dig deeper and deeper, and I couldn't really think about it. But all I was thinking was, there must be something happening, you know, not that you could see, but obviously something's happening, you know, in him, which he wasn't able to show, or he wasn't able to you know, tell people or show people. So it wasn't until I retired from rugby that I actually started to kind of understand mental health more, because when something, you know, you retire from rugby, you know, something that's been part of my game or part of my life for a long time, when it goes or when it's gone, you don't know how to act. You have no direction. You start to lose a bit of identity in terms of who you are, what you want to be. You know, you might prepare for 10, 15 years to what you want to think you want to be after rugby, but once that happens and sort of like effectively they're kind of, you know, it's cut loose, it's trying to then find that path. And like I was trying to understand in terms of like, you know, how again he was feeling, and and this is why it kind of resonates to me that, you know, every professional rugby player, every professional athlete, sportsman, every person in this world is going to go through some sort of heartache, a job loss, whatever it may be, you know, a moment in time where it's gonna have an effect on you intrinsically, and it's really important. I just feel it's really important to start encouraging people to talk about the problems, no matter how big or small, because I think people kind of go, I'm not going to bother talking about it because it feels silly. Nah, if you've got to have that confidence to talk to somebody to then understand, right, these are the next steps I need to take, because if you don't, all you're doing is you're going to dig yourself into a deeper hole, and you're not going to take those positive steps forward. So I think for me, sort of like that story resonates for me. And then it's funny, isn't it? When you start to understand mental health a little bit more, you actually look back on your life of things that have happened, good things, bad things, and you start to actually realise you probably were struggling at a time, which at the time, because you didn't really understand mental health, you didn't really pick up on it. And it's only now, sort of like now I'm like here and I kind of understand it, and you know, obviously I try and speak about it quite a bit. I can actually understand, you know, how I was feeling at that time. Or why was I feeling like that? Because, you know, of something happened, X, Y, and Z, or why did I feel like that? You know, and you know, when I was dropped, you know, for example, if I wasn't playing in a game and I'd have my individual review, I go back and I think to myself, well, why wasn't I playing in that game? So I think understanding the mental health side of things is hugely important to try and then if you like I say, if you understand it better, you can then take this positive step forward to make sure your life is going the way you want it to go. Yeah.
So Matt, can you tell us a bit about Give a Ruck?
Yeah. So Give a Ruck is a mental health awareness. I suppose it's more. It's funny, isn't it? So Give a Ruck is sort of like channeled towards rugby players, but not just rugby players. It's rugby players, it's officials, it's supporters, it's coaches, it's everything to do with rugby. And I've been following Give a Ruck for quite a while, and is Tess, Tess Beercroft, who runs it, or is I'm not sure if he's director, but obviously because I kind of became an ambassador just before lockdown, and basically it encourages people to talk about their issues. So players talk about issues, you know, supporters, officials, coaches, and I think that's really important. So it goes on a wide scale of rugby, because you know, rugby, we're all seen as hard men. You go out in the field and that's your battle, and at the end of the day, we're you know, I've known a lot of rugby players in my time, and you know, we're soft-centered guys at the heart of things. You know, it's very much an exterior when you get on that pitch, and I just think and this is why I kind of wanted to get involved with Give a Ruck, was because it gets people out there. And I know that they've done, and they are doing workshops. Obviously they're not doing workshops at the moment due to COVID, but they do workshops where they go to different clubs and they invite different people in, because, you know, again, like we said at the start, Becky, you know, very much women will talk about it, or women are more likely to talk about it. Whereas us men, we're very much, here's the exterior, we leave whatever's going on in behind, and we'll try and deal with it with ourselves. Or actually, this is where I find it. If I talk to people, you know, I find it, you know, it's amazing to see the kind of, not so much that you want to know in the ins and outs of issues, but it's really interesting to, you know, grab a beer with a friend and start talking about, well, what's happened this week? What's really kind of, what's put you in a bit of a blue mood, right? Can we talk about it? Can we get you thinking positively? Can I help a little bit? And the next minute we're all on that, again, that positive path, that pathway to leading positivity.
I think the thing is as well. Sorry, Pete, go on you.
Sorry, Matt, I think it's interesting what you're saying about, as you gain a bit of understanding about mental health from your own perspective, or perhaps someone close to you, you then get to, or I found this the case, you recognise it in others and perhaps early symptoms, and do exactly what you just said, which is talk it through and almost nip it in the bud before it descends into a darker place.
I completely agree, and a lot of things that I try and do at the moment is if I know I know quite a few people with what I've done in terms of they've struggled sometimes. I know a lot of servicemen still in the Marines, and all I do is just check in on them, and it might be a little phone call, 2-minute phone call, how's things going, how's when it's all COVID and we're all we're in the lockdown still, how's it going, what you've been doing this week, whatever. And it's just like little messages like that to keep in contact. How good's social media been since everyone's been locked down or self-isolating or staying at home. But it's really important just to kind of reach out. Now, it might not be going down, having a coffee, having a cake, having a beer with somebody, but it's just checking in. Hey, listen, if you need a chat, I'm here. Pick up the phone. And I think the more you put yourself out there and you reach yourself out there, people will hopefully, and this is a massive part of it, hopefully people will grab hold of that kind of that rope and sort of be dragged in and go, oh, do you know what, this is, and again I refer back to, it doesn't matter how little or how big the problem is. Like it might seem silly to you, but a 10-minute conversation may just change your way of thinking, and next minute you're flying, and you know exactly the right path to take, and you know exactly the decision you need to now make.
Completely. And I think there's a really important point here is that, and I think about this from my own perspective, I think men particularly, we are problem fixers, aren't we? We like to try and fix these issues. So when we get issues in our own life, whether they're personal or they're business related, you go into your mind and you're just constantly struggling to try and find the solution. What happens when you go and speak to somebody is that you bounce those ideas off each other, you get new perspectives, and that all really, really helps. But it's just recognizing, I think, when you get into that very insular kind of place and making sure that you can jump out of it, and you've got strong people around you that you can pick up the phone to, like you say. Yeah, really, really interesting. That, Matt, you ran beach rugby last year. Was that to raise money for mental health, was it, or there was a link somewhere?
Yeah, there's three charities. So there's the RNLI, there was the Marines charity, the Royal Marines charity, and there was the RPA. So the RPA are obviously they look after sort of like professional rugby players. Then obviously got the RNLI, which obviously speaks for itself, and then the Royal Marines charity, which is obviously helping Marines sort of either start a new life or if for example they've been injured away, they start to they help their servicemen. So there's three charities, and the reason for those was the RPA is quite obviously because I'm a ex-professional rugby player to help professional rugby players, but then the servicemen, because we're very similar in terms of rugby. You're very much institutionalized. Same with the services. Once you're finished with your job or you retire, you're very much you're put out there, and it's not them meaning to do it, but you are very much. You do lose a sense of direction, so I think that's really important. And then the RNLI was quite important to me because obviously I love Exmouth Beach. If I'm ever sort of needing to go and have sort of like a 10-minute think to myself, or if I need to go for a bit of a run and things are getting on top of me and I just need to go and clear my brain, get down to Exmouth Beach. What a lovely place that is. And obviously think about the RNLI, what they do, they're volunteers, they go out there. I mean, I don't know what they've seen at sea and how many people they've rescued, and unfortunately how many people they've had to pick up from different things in terms of an accident, or it could be, for example, suicide. So I think the mental health side of things for them is really important. They're volunteers, they're out there, and it might be like they might sort of like really struggle to start talk about how they feel. So I went down and I did that last summer, June, end of June, and I did 2 days. It was an adults day and a ladies day on the adults women's game on the Saturday, and then a junior game on the Sunday. And the reason I did that was because I thought that it's really important for rugby players as juniors to understand or start to get an understanding of mental health, puts them on the front foot. And then obviously, I wanted to include sort of like women's rugby, men's rugby, because obviously they're all out there at the moment. And and I kind of went for rugby, but then what I did do is, which I thought was this is me talking about it, but like, I got people from different sectors. So I got business people in. So we had Thrifty there. We had Darts Farm put a team in. So I hit the corporate side of things as well. And the reason I did that is because people will think, oh yeah, it's rugby, there's mental health in rugby, but actually in any job, in your jobs, whatever, you're going to have bad days. Everybody's going to have everybody in this world is going to have a bad day at some stage. And I just think to include everybody and go, do you know what? Let's get down to the beach. Let's play some rugby, a sport which obviously a lot of people like down in the Southwest. Let's go out in the sun. Let's have some food. Let's have a drink together, and let's try and celebrate and talk about it as much as possible. And we raised over £6,000, just over £6,000, and obviously we split the pots to go to those charities. So hopefully it's done a good thing.
And
Wow.
Becky, I know that you're going to be desperate to move on to Pete in a second, but I just got one quick question for Matt, which I'm desperate to ask. Is just, and I think it's important for all of us, is Matt, your main business now is coaching kids, isn't it, in the ways of rugby pre-COVID? I'm worried about my kids. I've got a 5 and a 3-year-old, and I'm worried about the world that they're growing up in, and the social media and the online bullying and all of these kind of things that are going to be a big important thing for me to understand. Do you see much kind of mental health being talked about with kids? Are there tips that you think we should share with people to get our kids kind of talking about this sort of stuff early, so it doesn't hit them when they hit kind of teenage and onwards?
Yeah, so there are a lot of initiatives, and I think coaches are now being, I know with kind of the play it safe type stuff, which the England RFU are doing, they're really highlighting the fact that there's so for example, if a kid's playing on a Saturday and his dad's or Sunday, and his dad's really wanting to win and stuff, and he starts coming over quite aggressive on the side of the pitch, well, what son or what person wants to turn over, and your dad kind of shout, he might be thinking the trying to think of you in the best thing in the world, but how is he coming across? He's coming across quite aggressive. So the play it safe stuff is really good. And then just sort of like, for parents, I think biggest thing for me is, for kids between 10, 16, whatever, it's their chance to play, and I think for that, it's like, don't put too much pressure on them, get them out there in the gardens, whatever, playing with a rugby ball, get them out there, just let them play, and don't be too worried about sort of how he's going to be, or he really wants to be a professional rugby player, but I'm not sure if he's getting, and have these kind of, just let him play. Like I couldn't catch a ball until I was 13, and couldn't catch a high ball until I was 13. I didn't play. If somebody said to me at 16, Matt would be a professional rugby player, somebody would have gone, no way. And it kind of, it came to me later. I wasn't. I'll say this: I wasn't naturally skillful. I had to really work hard at what I had to do. I had to really work hard and really think about things. And I guarantee there's parents out there. I mean, to be fair, in my coaching business, I've never met a pushy parent, which is brilliant for me. And I think that's testament to all the parents that I've coached and the teams and clubs that I've coached. Just let them play. And I think that's really important. Let them play. And I think obviously I'm on it, but there's stuff on the Instagram. There's different coaches out there putting out different things. Is that good for kids? Yes, it is. Because what that does, especially in times like this, gives them a focus. They see me throwing 5 rugby balls into a bin. What are they probably going to go and do? They might throw 5 rugby balls into the bin. What's that? Practicing their passing technique. So there is a real need for that social media, but it's just got to be, it's got to be done at the right time. So get their schoolwork done if they're learning, if they're being home educated. Right, it's playtime now. Right, is there a skill that you've seen, that you've seen on Instagram or whatever they're doing? Brilliant. Let's use that to the best ability. Let's go out there and have a go with them.
Amazing. Yeah. Becky, I think we should move into Pete. So
can I just ask Matt a quick question? We've just had a question on the YouTube conversation thing, that's all.
Yeah.
So obviously we were talking about exercise, and Al was talking about doing the Joe Wick sessions, and we've just had a question to say, do you think that people get the same amount of benefit from virtual exercise sessions as we're all doing it now, as opposed to going out and doing exercise together?
Yeah, completely. No, I think you do, and the reason being is, so I'm following like a program at the moment from CrossFit Pi, and all I've got. So I was very much a person that goes into a gym and wants all the weights and all the barbells and stuff, and I'll do my session, push, pull, whatever, bit of cardio. All I've been training with is a 25 kilogram plate and some dumbbells. and they give me this session, again, virtual, I look at it, I watch it, and I go for it. I think the really important thing with that is, these virtual sessions is how hard you want to push yourself, and that's the only thing. So, for example, if you're training with a group of 10, you've got people geeing you on and all that sort of stuff. If you're doing a virtual session, how hard do you really want to push yourself? And I think that's probably the hardest thing. So I think the virtual sessions are absolutely brilliant. I think home workouts are going to be the new big in, and that's not discriminating any sort of gyms out there or taking anybody away from that, but because I think people will need that gym and they need that the social side of it. But I think home workouts are brilliant. It's how much you want to push yourself. So if you're on a bit of a rest day, then it's fine, and sort of like tone it down. But I think if you really want to push yourself in that virtual session, could you have done 10 extra reps? Do 10 extra reps, and I think people will get those benefits if they think like that.
I think Joe Wicks is particularly good at that, actually. So when he's doing his sessions, he quite often talks about different ways to do the same exercise. So, he says, like, if you want to push yourself, guys, now do it this way. Or if you want a bit of a lazy one, then do it this way. And so, it's like, I try to push myself as much as I can. So, it's a good question.
Yeah, great question.
Great. Thank you, Matt. So spotlight's moving over to you, Pete. So, you're kind of here for very different reasons, but I think that's great because we're going to get so many different perspectives on this conversation. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and why mental health is featured in your life? And
yeah, absolutely. So I've had someone very close to me suffer quite seriously from mental health challenges for over a decade. And I came from a perspective where I didn't have a clue about mental health. I come from a background where those things weren't talked about, and to be fair, a family background where, looking back, there didn't seem to be many challenges in that area. So it was very easy to dismiss mental health things, the kind of pull yourself together attitude, which is so unhelpful. But I was forced to deal with it with someone very close to me. So what it's helped me to do is to sort of come up with some things that are very much in line with the theme of this year's or this month's mental health, which is that be kind theme. Because I think if you've come from a background where you haven't experienced those yourself, it can be easy to be dismissive. Things are changing, the stigma's changing, and there is a lot more empathy out there. But I think sometimes just how you handle someone with a mental health condition is something that is not always. It might be the will is there to do it now, but it's how do you actually do it? And I think something that you touched on, Matt, and you as well, Al, is first of all, sometimes people talk about crazy things when they're unwell. They can either be things that seem inconsequential, or they can be things that we want to fix. So they might say, you sort of say, what's the problem? And they come out with this whole kind of stuff, and you either think that's nonsense, or you think that's trivial, or you think, well, how do we fix that? And one of the things I've learned is that often you can't fix it, because what they're saying isn't actually the problem. They're just venting. They need to rant. They need to let out more how they're feeling, rather than actually, here's a problem. If you fix this problem, all my problems will be gone. It's not like that. So that theme of being kind, I think, is something that is a mantra I use now, and then you extend it. So you sort of say, well, what does being kind look like? Well, it means being patient. If someone's talking what seems to you to be nonsense, it's actually listening empathetically, seeing that it actually really means something to them at that point, and not always being in a rush to fix or try and fix the problem, because that's not actually, in my experience, what they're looking for. They just need a listening ear. And then kind of moving on from that, another mistake I made is thinking once you've perhaps had some treatment, be that medication or therapy or some other kind of session, we tend to think that fixes it. Okay, so you're on medication now, that's great, you're fixed, or you've had some therapy, you're great, you're fixed. And that's not the case. In many cases, it's a long-term thing, and it comes back to being patient and being kind. If you're a employer the same things apply. Understanding why someone's being the way they are, and that there isn't often no short-term fix if it's a serious mental health issue. Obviously, Matt, you've talked about people who may be going down the spiral, and that's where you can be very preemptive and preventative. But if you're already in that place, if someone's in that place, it can be a long time to bring them out of it. So if that's someone who you work with, particularly if you're an employer, understanding that it's not an overnight thing, and a lot of patience and flexibility is really important, is something that I think it's good for an employer to know and expect and understand. And I think it's really good that clearly having weeks like this and seeing all the initiatives that Matt's doing, that companies are doing, that you guys are sponsoring this event, it shows that the stigma of mental health is definitely going. I think sometimes an area where it can be overlooked is those supporting someone with a mental health condition, because the focus quite rightly is on the person suffering, which is right, but often someone who's very close to someone who's suffering needs support as well. And they often will need someone to vent to and rant to, because it can sometimes be very frustrating for that person, because they're in almost an impossible situation they can't fix it. They're in a long-term situation. It can be quite draining, and sometimes they just need to let it all out and share that with people. So sometimes we may not be in a position, whether we're an employer, a colleague, a friend, family, we may not be in a position to help the person suffering with the mental health condition, but we may be in a position to help the one who is primarily supporting that person and just keep them going so that they can keep the other person going. So that's the kind of sort of learnings that I've found have been useful for me.
Thanks, Pete. I think that's a really interesting perspective, and one that isn't really talked about very often. And I think, kind of from my point of view as an employee, working in a business where, so Al quite openly talks about mental health and wellbeing in the office, and there's various initiatives going on at Optix. So we have slightly longer lunch breaks if we want to. So we can take an extra half an hour to go and do something for our well-being. So we can go for an extra walk. We can go and have a therapy session if we want. We can go and do like a gym class, that kind of thing. It makes us feel a lot more like if something was to happen and we were to need to talk about something, the business will be much more receptive to that, because Al has already been really open about his view on that kind of thing. So yeah, thanks.
Just to touch on Pete's point, which I think is really relevant, and you talked about sort of like the longevity in terms of mental health, and something which I kind of say to people is I feel mental health is a continual process. So people may be suffering now, or before, or had, or people might think to themselves, "Oh, I've never really suffered with it." But there will be a step, and people, I think it's really important for people to realise they will see some form of it. I mean, the stats say 1 in 4 people either going through it or will go through it in their lifetime. But I think everybody will have something. Again, I'll say how big or so small, or how small, but it's a continual process. So, but I think it's really important once you start to realise how you deal with it. So talking to people, having that real good support network around you, that is what's going to put you through.
Yeah,
Alastair,
it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Definitely. There was a really good program done by Alastair Campbell. I don't know if any of you saw it a couple of years ago, about his life with depression. And Alastair Campbell is somebody that's super articulate. Obviously, he was Tony Blair's spokesman, wasn't he, during that whole time? And you have to be to do that job, I guess. So to hear him talk about how affected he was by depression. And his message was very much, I'm probably never going to get completely better from this, but it's all about managing it as I go through. So yeah, really fascinating documentary. I'm sure it's still out there, probably on YouTube or something like that.
Yeah.
Hey,
there's a couple of comments coming through on YouTube. So Simon House, who's watching, Hi, Simon. He says he totally agrees with Pete that support for those caring is often overlooked, but it's a really vital area. And then he's also made a point, which I was actually just about to say as well, where we kind of talk about mental health as something that you suffer from, but it's also, if you were to think about it in the same way as physical health, everyone's got mental health. It's just a thing that you have to look at and look after. And it's actually, well, on that scale, how are you feeling? So everyone's mental health is there, but you can be experiencing challenges with your mental health, or you can feel like, yep, today, this week, this month, my mental health is great. So I think that's definitely a little bit of a stigma that still needs to be gotten over.
That's a really good point, actually. Yeah, we need to look after it just like we need to look after our physical health. It's spot on that. It's absolutely right.
Yeah, definitely.
And just to touch upon the, again, Pete mentioned it again. I think that's, it's a really good poignant piece in terms of, the person might be going through it. I know, obviously, when I retired, I was going through a pretty rough stage. And it is your support network who gets forgotten about. Sort of like my wife, my family were going through at that time. At the end of the day, she had to go out and vent or speak to somebody because, I kind of realised how I was coming across. And, it's great when you're in your day job or you're cracking on and you're working and you've got this, again, I'll go with the shield is up and you're, positive Matt, or Matt seems like a really good, you go, where's the only place you're going to go home and sort of like, hit that low? It's going to be at home, and that's prominently where your immediate family are, and they're not going to support you, but they're also going to be they're going to be drained and they need to vent. So I think that's a really, really important point from Pete. Really important.
Yeah, someone said to me once when I was in the depths of it with the person having the challenges, home, we typically think of the home as the haven from everything, don't we? You've had a bad day at work, or you come home to the home and it's the peaceful environment where you get rejuvenated. And when you have that to go home to, those challenges, that's eliminated. So if you don't have that support network for both yourself and the one suffering, then it's really hard to cope with. But if you do, it can just replace that haven temporarily till you get it back.
Yeah.
I think if it's okay with you guys, we'll probably try and run on a few minutes today, because it's a really important topic and I think people will be interested in it. So there's no necessary, I don't think we need to stop bang on. But yeah, are you doing anything in particular for your staff at the moment when it comes to kind of mental health?
Yeah, we're doing a couple of things, one slightly less crazy than the other. So we've got regular calls or Teams calls, video calls scheduled with members of the staff or members of the team, not just if it's obviously the team are talking all the time about work, but this will be just a call. So it won't be about a specific project. Yeah, how are you doing? Are you okay? Particularly, we're mindful of those who might be working remotely on their own and feeling the effects of isolation, which can then lead you down to places that are difficult to contend with. So that's one of the things we're doing. We're also having a weekly, what we're calling happy hour. So we have an hour where we bring a drink onto the call and just have a general chin wag. I think you guys are doing something similar.
Is that 9 a.m. on Monday morning?
Yeah.
It's 9 till 5 Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
It's quite annoying because everyone's there's almost this little escalation at the moment of who can bring the nicest whiskey or wine on, and I don't drink anymore for health reasons, and so it's not anything ethical. I'm there thinking, I'd love to try some of that, and they're coming on. I've got a bottle of Pepsi Max or something like that. So, but it's a chance for banter, and it's a chance just to interact and make sure everyone's all right. So we're doing that, and then we've got an early warning system in place. I don't know if any of the team are listening to this, so they some of them may know, well, some of them know, some of them won't know. Yeah. But a few key members of the team who, like our studio manager, who is regularly interacting with people, will flag if she has concerns about someone, they seem a bit down or a bit stressed. and that's where Zoom karaoke comes in as a
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it normally involves me putting on a wig and some sunglasses, queuing up an ABBA track on Spotify, and then literally just calling them out of the blue, no notice, and we just start singing an ABBA song or a Queen song to each other at full blast, and then end the call, and then have a giggle about it afterwards. Just to add in that kind of, we're used to social interactions with social beings, aren't we? So we're used to the water cooler gossip and the office banter, and if you don't have that kind of silliness, sometimes just to let off a bit of stress or a little bit of steam, then you can end up getting quite frustrated with nowhere to vent it, particularly if you're on your own. So those are the kind of mechanisms that we have in place, and it's always people like me making a fool of myself, so I'm always up for that.
Love that.
Yeah, I think I'm just waiting now for you to take this up, please. I want you to Zoom call us and be in a wig and sing ABBA.
We should do it together, Al. We should do it together.
Okay, mate. Well, I only have one karaoke song, and that's "We Built This City." So yeah,
that's
my
fine.
only one.
I'll take that.
I did make a post on LinkedIn offering if anyone wanted a Zoom karaoke call, just drop me a line and we'd set it up. But no one's taking me up on it outside the business. So.
I mean, so within Optix we do happy hour as well. So on Friday at 4:30, we can dial in and bring a drink if we want to. And yeah, you're very welcome to join us. Bring your bottle of Pepsi and your wig and give us a song.
There we go.
My 4:45,
well,
falling on the floor.
Exactly. And just from that point, obviously, I come from a different perspective, obviously background in terms of, but I think those are really, really key. I think with, especially in the rugby side of thing, we have socials and barbecues and stuff like that to kind of, get coaches, players interacting and stuff. But that is and I think it's golden. And I think if any business is in listening to, you guys talk, they're brilliant. And again, that silliness, the banter, the kind of, takes that seriousness of the day job to kind of like, relax, whatever. And you know what? Sometimes that's where you get your best conversations. And you'll start people to go, actually, do you know what? I wouldn't mind opening up to Pete or Alastair or Becky and, to start talking about, again, the smallest or biggest of issues or whatever. And I think that's really important. I think it's great. Well done, guys.
Thanks,
Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
I think if it's okay with you guys, I'm just going to kind of end off a little bit by just talking about something personal to me, because I'm quite passionate about this subject, having been affected a little bit myself over the last year or two, and trying to share a few of the things that have really helped me. And you guys might jump in as well, I don't know, but so I've been quite open on my social media profiles over the last couple of years. I don't really want, after the karaoke story, I don't really bring it down too much, but being too morbid. But my wife and I lost a couple of babies over the last couple of years, and obviously that is the worst time of our entire life, and it put us into some quite dark places, and still does to some extent. We're only 6 months on actually from the last one, so it's very, very difficult. And I just wanted to kind of use this to share some of the things that I've been doing really to help myself, in the hope that some other people who might be listening to this might be suffering themselves with their own issues, however big or small. And a lot of these we've talked about already, and I have got a list here just to prompt myself, but so I'll whiz through them. But talking to friends was really key. I think just not bottling it up and talking to each other as well was really key for us, and making sure that we had that kind of continuous dialogue about things. And having a cry together was a quite important thing for us, certainly nearer the time. But other things that I've got into have been around kind of mindfulness and meditation. And I think one thing I wanted to try and get across here was that meditation or mindfulness isn't about going out and hugging trees and singing Kumbaya, which I think a lot of people maybe think it might be when they hear that word. For me, all it is having an app called Calm. There's loads out there. Headspace, I think, is another good one. And just having a bit of guided meditation, like 10 minutes maybe a day or every other day, where someone just teaches you about breathing exercises. And, you know, if you're the kind of person that maybe suffers from like anxiety or depression or panic attacks, having somebody talk you through kind of getting control of your breathing is so important. But the other thing is this whole mindfulness thing is just starting to be aware of what's around you. And one of the ways that I try and do this is, you know, I get out to the woods every day. We're so lucky where we live. Matt talked about Exmouth earlier on. I love the beach, but I haven't been able to get there recently. So I've been going to the woods, really trying to listen to what's happening around me, the birds, you know, looking at like the nature, the flowers, all of those kind of things, just to take you out of all the rubbish maybe that's going on in in your life at that time, and that's been so helpful for me. Another point that I've been trying to focus on is kind of routine, and so, you know, having a really good sort of bedtime routine, you know, trying to put down the screens like an hour or so before you go to bed. Trying to make sure you're going to bed at obviously a good time. I find that tiredness is probably one of my worst things. You know, if I get really tired, that's when I get really bad. I'm quite down sometimes. So having a good routine is really key. Someone gave me a great tip about not using your phone for an alarm clock, because the first thing you do then in the morning when you turn it off is you just on your phone immediately and straight into checking it, and, you know, social, email, that kind of stuff. So trying to put the phone away and maybe even put it downstairs and using something else for an alarm clock is a good thing. And you know, being alcohol free, eating well, focusing on the kind of wins that you've had in your life. I've got a list actually of good things to focus on that sits on my desk in front of me, and I add to it each time something good happens from a business perspective or a personal perspective, just so I've got a nice list of stuff to kind of look at and just, you know, G me up when you might be feeling a little bit low. So, you know, I just wanted to share that because a lot of those things have really helped me over those last couple of years, and you know, if they can help one or two other people, then that'll be a win for me.
Yeah. Those are really important. I think that they resonate with me. Some of the techniques you've mentioned there just are so powerful in just helping look after yourself. Definitely.
Yeah, and I've just remembered actually as well that Pete was one of the people when he heard about my story last year. He actually contacted me on WhatsApp and said, you know, are you okay? Do you want to chat? And that was amazing. And actually, Matt said to me when we were sorting out this phone call yesterday, you know, because I was talking about my situation, and he offered to speak to me on the phone anytime I wanted as well. So, you know, you two guys are doing, you know, you obviously, that's something that must be inbuilt into you to look out and care for other people, which I can't thank you enough from my own personal perspective, but hopefully from this we'll get other people thinking about who they know and who they can reach out to and just ask, are you okay?
Definitely.
Yeah, completely agree. And you know, I think sometimes, you know, whether it's a message or a phone call, and I think some people will be very sort of, oh, he's just being kind or whatever, but the way that I found it is talking about things is, you know, it certainly opens up your mind. You know, everyone will see the old saying, you know, problem shared is a problem halved, and all that sort of stuff. It's so true. You know, that, you know, instead of those, you know, the weight of the world, you know, resting on those shoulders, you know, you start to offload a little bit or talk a little bit, and somebody can give you different piece of advice. Again, next minute you start to, you know, that fog in front of you, you know, starts to clear a little bit, and you start seeing the woods and whatever. And next minute you're straight through on that path to, like I say, I'll always use positivity, but that's the way you've got to be. And just a quick one, I think you turned around about then and said about the winning, like. So I've been thinking about this recently, and we talk about it in rugby quite a bit, but win the day. So how do you win the day? And there's different things of winning the day. So a lot of people in lockdown, at home, not being able to work, you know, all these sort of things, you know, make your goal, you know, write down a little goal that you're going to do to win that day. It could be something really, really simple, you know, getting the insurance done or getting your car taxed or something like that. But you know, think about things like how you're going to win the day. And I think, you know, talking on routine, people's routine would have been knocked left, right, and centre if you're at home. So how can you set a routine, a couple of goals a day, you know, complete those goals or get those goals done, you've won the day. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, we should probably wrap it up there, I think, Becky. We've run over a bit, so hopefully people don't mind too much. But we should just mention.
I'll let it go.
I'll get berated for this later. We should just mention TalkWorks quickly as well, Becky. TalkWorks, if you're in Devon, and there probably is a catchment area so I'm not totally sure, you'd have to check it. But TalkWorks is a client of ours, actually, someone that we've been working with for a year or two. They're part of the NHS Trust, Devon Partnership Trust, and they are set up in Devon to, if you struggle with any kind of depression and anxiety issues, so you can go onto their website and you can fill out a questionnaire, and it will tell you whether you are likely to be suffering from anxiety or depression, and then you can go on and sort of self-refer yourself, so you don't have to go through a doctor to get a referral to them. And then you go into a process there where you can talk to their advisors and therapists and things like that if you are of that level where you need their help. So it's completely free service. It's all part of the NHS, but it's just it's something that and there's a link also that Thomas has just dropped into the chat there as well, so you can find the website. So yeah, very important. Cool. Okay, well, brilliant. Thank you so much.
I think that brings us to the end. So thank you so much for everything you've all said and for joining us. For anyone who is watching, you can watch this back afterwards as well. It will go on to YouTube as a video, and we also are converting these now into podcasts. So if you are out on your walk, whether that's at the woods or at the beach, and you want to listen to this, you can tell your friends. So you can find that on Spotify or any other podcast platform, and it's called Optics Talk. There will be another one of these next month on a completely different topic, and we will be releasing a couple more interviews, not live. They'll be pre-recorded over the rest of this week and next week. So keep an eye out if you're interested. But otherwise, enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. And thanks for joining us. And we'll speak to you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Becky.
You.